Hello everyone, welcome to the spoiler talk for Avatar from James Cameron. And oh my god, I've never seen a list this long. Like, normally I take notes during a movie, but this one is huge. This note segment is big. Oh my god, this is so many notes. Hopefully my dyslexia is not going to be getting in the way of me being able to do this video. So let's get straight into it, shall we then? So Jake wakes up from cryo. Apparently before they left Earth, his brother died by a robbery. He got shot by accident. And also humans have been on a journey to Pandora. At least these humans. But apparently the human race found a planet named Pandora. We've been going there for a while now in order to integrate with the people in that sense. And also find this rare mineral called unobtainium, which we learn more about later on. But anyway, we want that stuff. But we've been here for a while. But now this shipment of humans is coming over there. And basically Jake is here because of the fact that his brother was supposed to go. However, they already made like $1 billion like Navi body. And it was DNA coded to the brother. But since, you know, brother and all that stuff, the DNA can work for this idiot as well. So that is why he has to go. So we land on the planet. Everyone gets into the base. Jake is also in a wheelchair. And we see arrows in the tire, which is actually pretty cool tease. But also, how did that not, like, it's in the tire. How is there not air leaking from the tire? So when we go inside, we meet Colonel Quaritch. And apparently the people on this planet, the race on this planet is called the Navi. They are apparently hard to kill. And Jake and another guy that we meet called Norm, they are going to be Avatar drivers. So then we get the reveal of the fact that humans made the Navi bodies. And also, from this point onwards, from time to time in this movie, Jake is going to give us a little bit of a video diary. So then once we get to the room where the people go into the avatars, we meet the creator of the program and also the head of the program, Dr. Grace Augustine, who I swear I thought was going to become a villain at some point. But no, she actually will not. That's a good thing. So then Norm knows the Navi language because he's been studying for a long time, and I don't even know if Jake has ever opened the book, to be honest, which Grace is not really happy about. She doesn't really like him at all because he's not experienced, and she goes over to Parker, and that is when we get the reveal that we are here for unobtainium, which is still a stupid name. And also the Navi don't really like the humans. Understandable, you know, just understandable. Ultron went into you know, the internet for like 5 seconds and wanted to burn it to the ground. So yeah, I get it. I understand it. So then afterwards, later on, Jake and Norm, they get into their Navi bodies and they wake up, and Jake is really excited. He gets up and then he stands, which he's not allowed to do because he's supposed to, you know, slowly get into the body. But no, Jake is a bit, he's a bit eager, especially because of the fact that this man has not been able to walk for I don't know how long, and he wants to experience the feeling of walking. So he gets up, however, because of how big he is, and also with his tail and everything, he just knocks everything over. Then afterwards, he runs outside, at which point also the people want to sedate him, but that's not going to happen. Norman's like, don't worry about it, I'll go after him. So Jake goes outside, he experiences the world. Then afterwards, he starts running somewhere. And luckily enough, Grace in the Navi body is on the other side. So he doesn't really get punished. But it seems like he's good at adapting to the new body, which is good. So then afterwards, the Navi body goes to sleep, which means that Jake now is back in his human body. So he wakes up. So then later on, we meet Tsu'tey, who is a pilot. That's really all I can say about her. While I know her from Fast and the Furious, her character is not necessarily the best written or anything, you know. She doesn't have some big stories. She is the pilot, and that is all that she is. That's all you get from her, and that's fine. But anyway, she wants Jake to be one of her door gun men because she needs one. And then afterwards, we have a little bit of talk with Quaritch, who doesn't really like the Avatar program, and is like, so you're the villain of the movie. At that moment, I was like, right, so you're the bad guy of this movie. Right, because why would you say that? Why would you say that if you are not going to become at some point the bad guy? But yeah, he's the bad guy. But he wants Jake to infiltrate the Navi and learn their weaknesses. And I was like, yeah, okay, bad guy. If the first part didn't spell it out already, this part will definitely spell out that that prick is the bad guy of the movie. And if Jake helps him, Quaritch is going to give authorization for him to be able to walk again. So that is nice. At least we got something in return. So the squad goes back into the avatars, and then we take a plane, and we land that plane. And by the way, everything looks so beautiful. But then we go for a walk because it would be better if we just walked from here on out and the humans stay behind. So we walk and we scan. However, Jake decides to abandon Grace and Norm because he's curious about something. Then he starts playing with plants like he has the touch of the quantum realm, being able to make them small. However, when he does that to all of the plants, then there's a big, like, hammerhead rhino right there. Because, look, okay, before we get any further, most of these creatures I do not know the names of, okay? I don't know the names of. Sorry about that one. So I'm gonna basically describe them. But basically, a hammerhead shark fused with the rhino. And Grace tells Jake that, don't move, okay? If you don't move, everything is going to be fine. But Jake decides to intimidate the thing, which works. It works. Do not run is at least what they need to do. Then, the reason that it worked is not because of Jake. It's because of the fact that there's another beast behind him, like this big dog or wolf, I guess, I don't know. But anyway, and that scared away the hammerhead rhino. So now you run, okay? From that creature, you run. You do not play the big man. You run, okay? So he runs into the woods, jumps into the bottom of a tree with the roots and all that stuff. And then he has a gun with him, so he starts shooting, but it doesn't really do much to the creature. And it eventually takes the gun. So now Jake has to run once again, and he jumps off a cliff straight into the water. But that also means that he's lost from the group. So then later on, when it starts getting dark, we have to go back because of the fact that those are the rules. We can't search for Jake anymore. So Jake is on his own. Hopefully he'll survive the night. So Jake wraps something in, also he made a spear. But anyway, he wraps the other end of the spear into some cloth, and then he puts that into some, like, stuff. I don't know what it is. But then he sets it on fire in order to light the place. And then he sees a bunch of, like, tiny little dogs, like rabbit chihuahuas or something like that. And with rabbit, I don't actually mean the animal. I mean the fact, you know, violent. But anyway, like, you got like a little thing. So Jake runs, tries to put them away with fire. However, then he gets attacked, so he kills a couple of them. And also, while he was walking earlier, I forgot about this one, Neytiri, which will become more important later, she aims the bow at him. But then, as we learn later, a seed from the tree, like, lands on her arrow, and it's like, okay, so I'm not supposed to kill him. The god says no. So then, as Jake is being violently attacked, Neytiri comes down, and she saves him. And also, she throws the fire away. And apparently, she knows English, which apparently, I guess, later on is revealed that Grace apparently had a school over there to teach the Na'vi English. So that is why she learned it. And also, she blames Jake for all of the death that had happened because of the fact that, well, you know, he outsider and all that stuff. You know, classic stuff. But the reason that she saved Jake was because of the fact that he showed no fear. And that's not entirely true, because the reason that you saved him is probably because of that little seed that landed. So then he starts to follow her. She doesn't want him to follow, but then a bunch of seeds of the sacred tree come to us. And then Jake tries to just, like, swat it away, which was just funny. She's like, no, stop doing that, okay? And then all of the seeds land on Jake. And she's like, oh my god, he's the chosen one. And now she'll allow him to come. But as he goes, yeah, he gets attacked by other Na'vi. She tells them afterwards to, like, stop and then take him to the village, because there's been a sign from the gods and all that stuff. You know, simple, like, anything unexplainable is like a sign from the gods, that kind of stuff. So Jake gets taken to a Tukan, I think it is, actually. Basically, it's Neytiri's dad, and also he is the leader of the village, obviously. So then Jake wants to shake hands, and is like, no, don't do that, okay? You do not shake hands. So then later on, Moatapid comes down, who is Neytiri's mother, and she questions him. Jake is basically like, I'm here to learn from you people. So then Neytiri gets put in charge of teaching Jake all of the things, which she isn't really happy about. So then afterwards, later on, there's a big gathering of the Na'vi, and Jake just steps on someone's tail, which is just funny. But then later on, they go into the sleeping mats that they have in the trees. And when Jake goes to sleep, he wakes up once again in his human body. And then we tell the humans about his experience with the Na'vi village and all that stuff. And apparently the village is located on a big deposit of unobtainium. So basically Jake needs to basically blend in with the people and then convince the people to move. He has 3 months to do it, so you may think that's a lot of time, but those 3 months are gone in seconds. So then also we learned that the Ewa that the Na'vi keep talking about, that is basically their god. And then we go back into the avatar body. So then there is this quote-unquote horse-like creature, and Jake gets on the back of it and links it with the ponytail, which is weird, but we'll get to the weird part later on. However, once the horse basically takes off, Jake falls off, which was just a funny thing. And also, Tsu'tey tells Jake to leave because he doesn't belong here, and also he is apparently supposed to get into a relationship with Neytiri, which they set up, but then it's a weird setup thing. It's like, yeah, they are supposed, at least if I remember correctly, I may be misremembering, but basically it was stated that the two of them were going to get engaged in that sense, which I guess is supposed to be like an obstacle in the movie, but it doesn't really feel like an obstacle in the movie. So then later on, after a bunch of stuff has happened, Jake kind of gets caught talking to the Colonel, and so the Avatar squad, as I call them, they will now move to a new location on the floating mountains of Pandora, which once again look absolutely stunning even to this day. But we go over there and Jake knows that Grace knows that he's been talking to the Colonel. So then we go back to the Na'vi and we get to meet Neytiri's Ikran, or later on I think they're called Banshee, but Ikran, that is what they call them. And later on Jake is going to have to choose one of his own, and then she flies around to once again show how beautiful this world is. They really, like, James Cameron really wants you to just be invested in this world for like the finale of the movie, and he's really succeeding at that one. I love all of the scenes that we get of this planet. Also, in between watching this movie and doing this spoiler talk, I also ate a bit, so my memory is getting a little bit fuzzy, but I also wanted to let the movie simmer a little bit before I did the spoiler talk as well. So then Jake records another log, and that is basically a montage log where we learn the language, we get some bow and arrow practice. Grace was apparently allowed back into the village, and then later on he hunts an animal. And now we get to the point where Jake has to get his own Ikran or Banshee. So he's got to get to GTA 3. Dude, it's I know exactly the route that you have to take in order to get that Banshee. Don't worry about it, I can help you get that location. The Legend of the Banshee in GTA 3. Like, when he said Banshee, my first thought was like, GTA 3. That was just the first thing I thought of. But anyway, the thing is, Jake has to choose the one that will attack him, because that is the one that is going to be his. So he's walking around and most of them fly away, but then one starts to attack him and Jake closes its mouth in order to be not get eaten. And then afterwards he links up with it, and now he has to do the final test, which is fly with the thing, which initially goes bad when he almost crashes into a mountain, but he gets to fly with the thing. So then later on we get taken to the tree, the special tree that is the most important thing to the Na'vi, which is actually really cool. And then later on we learn also that Jake apparently now has become an aerial hunter, because like I said, this movie, the 3 months will go by like that really quickly. However, as we are hunting from the sky, we are also being hunted from the sky by a Turok, which I think is actually what that thing is called. But basically, it's like a Banshee, but bigger. So we escape the thing, and then we learn the fact that apparently only 5 Na'vi have ever ridden a Turok. And if you do that, it is like everyone has to bow to you. Let's just say that, okay? Because that's what happens later on in the movie. Because of course this is set up, and this was also my one, like the other problem that I talked about. But we'll get there when we get there. So then Quaritch apparently notices that Jake is starting to change a little bit, and apparently he has gotten the approval for Jake to get his legs fixed, which is nice. However, Jake wants to go back in order to do the ceremony to truly become one of them and negotiate the relocation, which the Colonel is very disappointed about. I mean, you can see it in his face. He's kind of like, dang it. Maybe he knows what's to come, who's to say. So then afterwards, we go back to the Na'vi, and Jake, he bonds with the Tree of Voices, and he officially becomes one of them, which is a nice ceremony. And then later on, he is with Neytiri, and she tells him that he gets to choose a woman now, I guess, to mate with for life. He gets to choose a wife. God, if only it was so simple for us. For me, I would like that one. Okay, fantastic. You know, something like that. But basically, she then starts naming a different women of the Na'vi clan, and he's like, no, I don't want them, I want you. And she's like, I also want you. And here we go. Here we get to the little problem in a way, because we've been using our ponytail to link with these different animals. However, now we link with Neytiri. So it's a sexual thing. So have we been sexual with these weird creatures or not? Because like, have we been sexual with the bird and also with the horse? It's weird. I will say that it is very weird, but whatever. Doesn't really matter. The movie never really stops to think about it. So then afterwards, obviously they go to sleep, and going to sleep means waking up in your human body. So then the next day, Neytiri wakes up, and because of the fact that there's noise, because the bulldozers that were talked about earlier in the movie that I don't think I mentioned, but basically they want to bulldoze the tree in order to get to the unobtainium. But anyway, the bulldozers are coming. So Jake doesn't wake up, because of the fact that, you know, he's back in his human form. So I do love this sequence because Jake is basically just like, I want to go back in, but then also gets distracted by breakfast, basically. And then she's like, wake up, Jake, and tries to drag his body away. So when he eventually decides to go back into the machine, he wakes up and is like, oh no, wait, what's happening? There's horrible things happening. So Jake yells and he's like, hey, stop. But then it's like, you keep pushing forward with the machine, okay? Because of the fact that if you keep going forward, eventually they'll move away and no problem will happen. So that does indeed happen. But what he doesn't know, that's Parker, by the way, but what he doesn't know is the fact that Jake apparently went up climbing to the side and destroys the camera of the thing in order for the humans not to be able to see anymore to stop the big things. However, the forest was kind of destroyed when obviously these hippies like the forest. However, while they are replaying the camera, they notice that the one who did it was Jake. Quaritch noticed mostly. So he decides to take a team in order to go to the floating planets or the floating mountains in order to, you know, kind of punish them, I guess. So then obviously now the Na'vi know that, you know, bulldozers are coming. So little problem, war might break out. However, Jake and Grace try to calm everyone down because if you go to war with your bows and arrows, you're gonna get destroyed because it's not going to work. However, also what gets revealed is the fact that he made it with Neytiri, which Tsu'tey gets angry about, and also the parents also get angry about. But like, he gets angry about it for like a second. But then afterwards, he's like, I'm one of you too. I want to go and speak. So he prepares a speech in his head, and he's ready to say it, but Quaritch has arrived at the place, and he goes inside, and then he pulls the plug, basically. He makes sure that the connection that Jake has to his avatar gets severed, and Jake goes back to his human body. So Jake wakes up, he gets punched and knocked out. So right as he's about to say something, he just falls down. So Tsu'tey wants to kill Jake. However, Neytiri fights him in order to stop it. So then we get a bit of a scolding about it, but we also try to scold them. And Grace then tells the, you know, Parker and Quaritch about the fact that the trees are basically a network and you can't destroy that stuff because it's sacred. And then Parker basically goes, yeah, everything is sacred to these stupid hippies, okay? I throw a rock over there and it's all sacred land anyway. It's like, well, yeah, you gotta be careful with nature and all that stuff. However, they don't listen, obviously. And then they pull up a log that Jake had made about the fact that he finally came to a realization. That's the fact that there is nothing the humans can give the Na'vi for them to be able to move. And that is enough justification for Quaritch and also Parker to go on with the mission. And Quaritch basically promises Parker, look, I'll throw in the gas first in order to get them out of the way, and then I'll blow up the tree in order to get to the stuff. And Parker agrees. So then later on, Grace, after learning about what the plan is, she goes back to Parker, and he allows us to talk to the Na'vi, but we got 1 hour before the attack will happen. So they go back into the bodies, and Jake tries to warn the Na'vi, but also in doing so, he reveals that he knew about it all along, which breaks Neytiri's heart. And then the Na'vi catch Jake and Grace and tie them up, and then the military come in. And of course, Quaritch would have a dragon on the side of his plane, and also the plane being called Dragon, like dragon here. It's like, dude, really? Whatever. Don't care. It's just a funny little thing that I thought of. So the Na'vi try and fight. However, the gas grenades kind of ruin stuff, and also the arrows are completely useless. So then rockets get fired, and Moat, this is, I think, the thing, maybe I talked about this in the review. It's been a while since I recorded that thing, so I don't remember. But anyway, Moat comes and frees Jake and Grace and wants them to basically fix everything. So the tree gets destroyed. However, Trudy is the only plane that does not fire. She's not gonna fire on the big tree. So that goes to show that she's on our side. However, sadly enough, the tree falls down and a toucan, sadly enough, dies. R.I.P. the boy. So then Neytiri tells Jake to never come back, and Jake and Grace both get forced out. Norm also tried to protect them, but failed miserably because he's not necessarily the fighting type. And then afterwards, the three of them get thrown into jail for, you know, mutiny and all that stuff, all the bad stuff. So now that they are locked up with no way out, luckily enough, Trudy is here, and she frees them with Max, and then we leave. And then Jake tells Max, you stay here because we need eyes and ears on the inside, okay? So we get to the jet in order to take off. However, Quaritch notices and he starts shooting at us. And I do like how he just holds his breath, opens the door, doesn't care about the rest of these people, and then just starts firing at the thing, and then gets a mask and puts it over his head. That man can hold his breath for a while. So then afterwards, we pick up one of those, like, stations, I guess, in order to be able to relocate close to the Tree of Souls, because of the fact that right there is where, you know, everything is kind of, bad in that sense. And what I mean is the fact that there's some, like, signal interference, that kind of stuff. I'm not really techie, so I don't know what you call it, but there's basically signal interference. However, the problem is, while we were trying to escape, Grace got shot, so she is dying now. So Jake thinks that potentially the Na'vi can help us, but why would they help us? Well, because he has something that he needs to do first. So he goes with his pal, his bird, his banshee, and he flies off in order to get a bigger bird, that being the Taruk. He wants to get the Taruk, and this is the point in the movie what I was talking about in my review, the other problem, and that is the fact that in the movie it was stated that taming one of these is extremely difficult and only 5 people have done it. So Jake gets to the location of the Taruk and basically jumps towards it, and then we cut away, and the next scene he's flying down on the thing. And it's like, I get what he was doing, you know, James Cameron. He wanted to be like, you know, have this awesome moment where you see him on the back of the thing, but like, since these things are so hard to tame, I kind of wanted to see him actually struggle to tame it. That is what I meant. But he flies down to the Na'vi people, and everyone is in awe of him. And then also, Neytiri apologizes because of the fact that she was only doing what she thought was right. She felt betrayed by him. So everything is fine, back together again. You love to see it. And then afterwards, we ask them for help, and they will help us. And they have a little ceremony at the tree. So at the tree, basically, the tree can fully link you to your Na'vi avatar. Like, instead of you being human and then going into the machine and controlling the Na'vi body, you can actually become fully Na'vi by fully having your mind be transferred into the Na'vi body. So we try that with Grace, but sadly enough, because of her wounds, she can't do that. And she dies, which I was not necessarily expecting, but that's because of the fact that I heard talk about the sequel, and she's back in the sequel. But I think she's back in a different way. Something that was teased actually in this movie with the pictures when we get to like the floating mountains. We see her with like the Na'vi, or at least in pictures we see that stuff, and there's like a tease there for future stuff. So then Jake speaks to the people, and he wants the people, the Na'vi, to go to all the other clans, and they want to fight back, just rally an army. So then Quaritch also readies his men to destroy the mountain, because that will forever crush the Na'vi, at least their fighting spirit, and it will officially mean that we have taken over the world. However, the Na'vi have the home field advantage. So the humans come flying in, and it's time for the final battle, boys. We finally made it, and they ready a big bomb, and I'm like, do you really need a timer on the thing or something? You can just drop that and it goes boom anyway. It's a bunch of explosives. But we charge from the air and from the land, and their targeting system does not work because of the flux. That was what it was called, the flux. Like, that is what happens. So we have a big bloodbath between both sides. We take out some of their planes, some of their people. They take out some of our men and women and all that stuff, and it's a big fight. And then later on, Truly also joins in the plane and starts shooting at the dragon, quote unquote. And sadly enough, later on in the fight, Neytiri crashes into the woods because she got shot down, and sadly enough, her Banshee dies. R.I.P. the Banshee. Also, Tsu'tey jumps into the back of the plane in order to kill the people. However, he gets shot and falls down, so he's dead. R.I.P. the boy as well. Trudley also gets blown up, sadly enough. So it looks like we are losing the battle, and it's a sad, sad moment. But then, when all seems lost, because earlier Jake prayed to the planet has listened, and we got the hammerhead rhinos and sky creatures who join in the battle, and we fight and actually win this time. Now we are on the winning side. So then Jake put some explosives on the bomb ship, at least in the engine, so that it crashes. So that works out. However, that still explodes. So I don't know what they were trying. Like, they were going to drop the bombs in like 30 seconds, but then Jake puts the bombs in there and it crashes. That's still close enough to where they wanted to drop the bombs. I don't really know what happened there, but whatever. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, we got that one out. Then afterwards, Jake goes over to Quaritch's ship in order to take out the engines as well. Little problem is, Quaritch sees him, grabs the wheel, and turns the thing so that Jake can't throw the bombs where they need to go. So then Jake is hanging on the side, and he grabs one of the missiles that came loose, and he throws it right before he gets thrown off the plane, and it hits the turbine engine, and Quaritch instantly just runs over to the mech, gets inside of the mech, and right before the plane crashes, he jumps out, and now he's in the mech. Final boss time. So Quaritch with the big gun is walking, and then he notices our hideout, basically the station that we took with us. He notices that one, so he's ready to just destroy that thing, because they'll take out Jake and everything. However, then Neytiri appears, and she tries to attack him, because of the fact that earlier, like the scary beast from way earlier in the movie, she was able to tame that thing. I didn't put that in the notes. Like, I'm heavily relying on my notes right now. But anyway, she tamed that thing. She now bonded with it. So, with that thing, she tries to take out Quaritch, but sadly enough, he is just too strong, and he kills the beast. But then Jake enters, and they have a little bit of a fight, but when it looks like things are going bad, Quaritch decides to not target Jake anymore, but instead the station, because that is where true Jake is, and he's powerless down there. So he breaks open the window, and he hits the first thing, opens it up, empty. Wrong one, dang it. So then afterwards, he goes to the other side. However, Jake then attacks him, and there's a little thing that went wrong here, and that is the fact that apparently there's a little bit of an opening now in basically the machine that he's in. So he's breathing in the poisonous air of Pandora. So he is starting to have trouble breathing. But also that means his avatar is having trouble breathing, because he's very reliant on his human body. So then when it looks like Quaritch is going to kill Jake, at least the avatar Jake, Neytiri then shoots arrows at Quaritch, killing him. And then afterwards, Jake gets out of the machine, and he tries to get into the mask. Like, he tries to grab the mask. However, he doesn't get it in time, and it looks like he's going to die. But Neytiri, she initially is at the Navi body and is like, Jake. But then she realizes, wait, no, this is just the body. The real one is in there. So she goes through the opening that Quaritch made, and then she sees Jake lying there. So she grabs the mask, puts it over his head, and he then wakes up, and then he locks the mask so that he can actually breathe. And there you go. I guess now for the first time they see each other. And there you go. We won. Yay, we did it. All right, we defended the planet of Pandora, and then to end the movie, we sent the humans back to Earth. And obviously Parker's like, this isn't over. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it was for about almost like 12 or so years, I think. This battle was over for 12 years. But then finally James Cameron decided to release the sequel. So I guess the battle isn't over. And only the main squad are allowed to stay here. Like, only some humans are allowed to stay. So then Jake makes his final log, and he says that it's his birthday. But it's not actually his birthday. What it is instead is the fact that it is his rebirth day. Because today is the day when his body becomes fully useless and he becomes fully Navi. And that is how the movie ends. And overall, what a movie, man. Like, dude, I've been recording for 40 minutes, but still, like, what a movie. I thought this thing was absolutely fantastic. I don't know what was wrong with me back in the day where I said this wasn't really the best thing. No, it is. No, it is. This thing is so good. Now, I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie. Does the movie have problems? Yes. But for me, the only things that would really, the lower scores, is problems that I have an issue with. Here, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, I understand why he did, you know, the whole, like, Torok thing. But also, the humans are lesser, but that's because of the fact that it's all about the beauty of the world and the Navi. That is really where the main focus is at. So the humans take a back seat to that. However, what I don't understand is why The Way of Water took so long to make, coming out in 2022. Like, really? It's like 13 years, 12 or 13 years later. Like, I don't get why it took so long for the sequel to be made, and I really hope that the sequel is really good, because I actually don't know, because that is a movie that I've never seen, because when I watched this movie for the first time, I was like, it's fine, you know, and I wasn't really interested in the sequel anyway. And also, to be honest, my perception of the sequel was also kind of lowered because of the fact that it took so long to come out that, like, I don't really care anymore, that kind of stuff. But I think that this movie is absolutely fantastic. So let me know what you guys thought about this movie. Spoiler failed, obviously, in the comment section down below. And with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching, and I do hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you did, please like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, turn notifications, don't forget to check out the Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And actually, I will give you guys some behind the scenes look in that that sense. First of all, I am recording the first Avatar movie on the 29th of September. The 30th of September, tomorrow that is, I'm gonna be recording the second movie. And the reason for that is because of the fact that on Wednesday I have an appointment, and the second movie is 3 hours and 15 minutes long. God, what's wrong with this guy? Is there even like a, it's not yet known how long the third movie is going to be. But like, that's long. I need a full day for that one, okay? So that is why instead of doing it in order of like Avatar, Five Nights Avatar, I'm gonna do Avatar Freddy, that kind of stuff. That's just a little bit of background information. God, I'm so scared to get into that sequel because of how long it takes. And I did my best to get the spoiler talk done, like to go as focused as I can. But anyway, I'll see you guys next week for Five Nights at Freddy's, because I don't know if you guys are gonna watch that. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks for my review and spoiler talk for Avatar: The Way of Water. Bye!